Our demonstrator tonight is Julie Gilbert Pollard. Julie paints in both oil and watercolor in a fluid painterly style that is representational yet deeply personal. She describes her work as an expression of the mind's eye, a blend of observation and imagination inspired by the mystery and beauty of the natural world. A seasoned artist and instructor, Julie is the author of Discover Oil Painting, Watercolor Unleashed, and Brilliant Color, along with 9 instructional videos via artistnetwork.com. Her paintings and articles have appeared in Watercolor Artist, The Art of Watercolor magazine, Splash, and other major publications. Teaching since 1985, Julie has led workshops across the US and abroad, including Italy, Portugal, Canada, and North Carolina's Cheap Joe's art workshops. She holds signature memberships in the Arizona Watercolor Association, San Diego Watercolor Association, and Plein Air Painters of Arizona. And her award-winning artwork is represented in galleries throughout Arizona. Ladies and gentlemen, I present Julie. Julie, the floor is yours. Oh, we can't hear you, Julie. Oh,
Sorry,
Oh,
I
yes, I can.
got it.
I
there
thought
we
you
go.
had to unmute me because you muted me earlier.
Sorry.
Okay. Uh, I think you can hear me now, though, right?
Yes, beautifully. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me here. Um, now I have written out some notes so I don't forget something, so I'll try not to make it look like I'm just reading, but I didn't want to forget anything. So I do understand that AWC is a watercolor organization emphasizing traditional watercolor with just touches of opaque color. So I have to tell you that I am not a purist, and to me, paint is paint, basically. So I will use whatever it takes to get the job done. Um, so I'm more of a water media painter than a watercolor painter. Um, and possibly that comes from the fact that I'm also an oil painter, which of course opaque figures very prominently in oil painting. Now the water media I use includes transparent watercolor, gouache, opaque watercolor, which is not necessarily the same exact thing as gouache, um, but I also use acrylic and, as I said, oil. And with all these different mediums, I still try to follow the best practices for archival quality as much as I can. So all this said, I do totally understand how fulfilling it is when you're able to achieve a totally transparent watercolor because it is a challenge. And that's why we have masking fluid and other types of resist. However, I don't like the look of masking fluid. My own personal preference is a shape made with either opaque paint or by negative painting around it rather than preserving it with masking fluid. Just a personal preference. So therefore, I generally, not always, but I generally use masking fluid sparingly and seldom. Although a couple of examples I'm going to show you, or at least one now that I'm trying to remember, one of them does have extensive masking fluid used. So I do hope that you'll find some of my methods of interest, even though they're not strictly transparent watercolor. So because I don't have the ability to paint an entire painting in a short session because I'm pretty much a slow, methodical painter, I have prepared a slideshow uh, to precede the demo that I'm going to do. So let me get my share going here. I got it queued up, so hopefully I won't have to go searching. That's not it. There we go. So, let's see. As I've already mentioned, to me, paint is paint. Um, and it seems to me that, for me at least, the different mediums really reinforce each other rather than fight. It kind of depends on your own painting personality. I know some people just really either prefer to just use one medium and one approach, and other people like a little bit of variety. And I guess I'm of the latter persuasion. So the first one is totally transparent. Now, this is painting in series in a way, but painting from the same um, reference material, only this one is gouache and this one is oil. So I do really enjoy when I have the time. I really do enjoy painting the same basic subject matter, even composition, although these three compositions are a bit different. I do enjoy painting them using different mediums. And now I
Julie, we have a
also,
question.
yes, go ahead.
What is the difference between gouache and opaque watercolor?
I am afraid I don't know. So if you look at the Holbein watercolor paints, they have several that are sold as watercolor, but they are every bit as opaque as their gouache line. The colors in the same names still, and the same color name can be a different visual color. However, usually it's more of a matter of value. But for example, in their watercolor line, they sell Jean Briand #1. In their gouache line, they sell Jean Briand #1. Same name, but the colors are not the same. Um, it's mostly a matter of value than color. But when I teach a gouache class, I have the both the watercolor opaque and the gouache colors in my supply list. So, I don't know what the difference is in their formulation. It's a good question. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer. Um, so let's see. But keep those questions coming. If I don't know the answer, I'll just truthfully say, I'm throwing up my hands. I don't know. If I do know the answer, I will tell you. Um, so let's see. Um, painting the same painting here, the same composition here. I was simply practicing for the of the acrylic snow video that was coming up. And there is the cover of that video, which, as far as I know, is still available through Artist Network. Um, it was done several years ago, uh, and I have a few other videos with them as well, which I think are still available. They're not available as CDs anymore. However, now it's all streaming. Let's see what's coming up here. So I did put some snow paintings in to show you. Um, and I wanted to say also that I also wanted to show you some acrylic because I've been invited as faculty for the Acrylic Live event in March. It's the Essentials Technique Day, for which I will be demonstrating rocks and water. So, as you've seen with my winter berry paintings, I often paint the same composition in different mediums, but I also sometimes paint the same scene in multiple times in the same medium, as with the snow scene I just showed you. Um, and my and I also paint in series, which is not quite the same thing, but my very favorite subject is rocks and water. And so when I paint a snow scene, I do try to have rocks and water as part of that snow scene. This is one. Now, this is a transparent, 99% transparent painting. Oh, excuse me. Every time I teach a Zoom class or get on with a Zoom demo, I started coughing, so I have to apologize for that. Anyway, everything was pure transparent with no uh, masking or gouache, except for this area right here. And I did do a lot of negative painting there, but I also did use some masking and some touch-up gouache at the end. Um, I did want to point out that when I do the splattering water, the white water that's splashing up in front of rocks or itself, as in the case here, or whatever's behind it, I like to use a negative splatter technique, which I'm going to try to show you if I can make my brush cooperate. Sometimes it has a mind of its own. It doesn't do what I want it to do. So I'm going to introduce now um, the rainbow underpainting. Um, this one has it. The previous one did not. And I'm going to go backwards so that I can show you. Perhaps you can see that for this one, the white areas are pretty much just plain white paper, which gives a much crisper sunlit look. This one, I did the rainbow underpainting, which gives a softer look. And this one was fairly minimal, but when I zoom in on it, you can see little spots of pink and yellow, and I'm not sure exactly where the blue is. Maybe that was the blue. Um, but it does lend an atmospheric look to your painting. Now, I did not make this up. I found this technique in a John Pike book from many years ago. Yeah, John Pike, if you aren't aware of him, he was a really fabulous watercolor painter. So let's see what's coming up. So this is what the rainbow underpainting, those are my words, but his technique. This is what it usually kind of looks like. Sometimes it's subtle like this, and other times it is a little more bold. Um, so for this one, this is the one that was under the painting I just showed you. And you see there is blue in there. Oh, excuse me. So I generally, I'm so sorry. So I generally do the acrylic underpainting. I'm sorry, not acrylic, the rainbow underpainting, let it dry, and then do the drawing on top of the dry underpainting.
Julie, we have a question.
I'm, something has got my allergies really going. So yes, what's the question?
Do you wet both sides of the paper?
I usually just wet one side.
Okay.
Um, Now, I don't paint large paintings anymore. I used to, but in recent years, I paint only like a quarter sheet, and it usually doesn't really need to be wet on both sides. A larger sheet of paper is very helpful to keep it flat if you wet both sides, but I usually don't. So this painting also has a fairly minimal rainbow underpainting. Um, and let's see what's next. Oh, so this one I put in there because I did want to show you um, that sometimes I use all of the mediums in one painting. And this one has traditional watercolor plus fluid acrylic used like watercolor and gouache. So and it's also on watercolor canvas. So I'll show you what it looked like at the beginning. Um, this is fluid acrylic used like watercolor. So when I use it like watercolor, I pour it out of the bottle. I don't use very much. And then I dilute it even further so that it's very, very diluted and really the consistency of watercolor. And truthfully, I don't think you can tell the difference. So all of this watercolor look is with fluid acrylic. The benefit of doing this, excuse me,
Julie, we
is
have a
that,
couple of questions.
okay, go ahead.
With regards to the previous painting, how did you do your signature?
Oh, uh, let's see. I just use a very, um, well, let's see. The brush I use is actually it's a Winsor Newton watercolor sable pointed round, which is a longer hair. It's not as skinny as a rigger, but it has a very long brush.
And which type of paint did you use?
Just watercolor.
Just watercolor. Okay, another question.
Um, mhm, yes,
What technique is applied to achieve a rainbow effect?
I am going to demonstrate that.
Okay.
So you'll see exactly how that works. Um, let's see. Well, I'm going to go back. So I don't know if it was this painting that was the question about the signature was for, or this one. This one is just regular old watercolor, and this one, um, I think it might have been fluid acrylic. I just finished it recently, but I can't tell you exactly because I don't remember, but it looks like it was probably fluid acrylic. Oh, and another thing about incorporating gouache, sometimes I will use it to resurrect a painting that has been sitting in a pile for a long time. And perhaps I could finish it with watercolor, but um, maybe for whatever reason, I decide that I want to try something different because it's been sitting around for years. In the case of that previous painting, it was started in, I believe, 2017, and it just sat there for all those years, and I finished it just recently. Um, Now this painting is totally transparent. So it's not like I don't use transparent watercolor. I do. Um, but I don't like to be locked into just that. I do feel that adding gouache or acrylics really opens up the possibilities with the medium. But this one is completely transparent, and it also is completely negative painting. No masking was used. This, on the other hand, has extensive masking fluid. So you can see the drawing and the masking fluid, and which allowed me to paint quite freely. The upper half was painted with a wet into wet approach, with this area right here being a little more selective because I wet the paper, but I kind of painted around some of these um, white areas. I could have masked them, but I didn't. And then the bottom half of the painting is just simply on dry paper with some edge softening. And there it is with the masking fluid removed. And of course, so let's go back for a second. And of course, it looks very stark, which is what you can fix. But it is one of the things I really don't like about masking fluid. So in this stage, I modeled the snow clumps and then added the branches. And you can see that I did sign it. I kind of thought that it was finished, but then I decided that I wanted to break up that dark background a little bit. So I did splatter some white, opaque white, just to break up that background and kind of give the feeling, hopefully, that a little breeze was coming through and maybe knocking some of those snow crystals into the air. I mean, you could tell it's the sun is shining because of the shadows. So it must be the wind, right? Now this painting has an extensive use of both positive and negative splatter. And I'm zooming in so you can see the negative splatter. Um, Negative here, because all the white in this area is white paper. This is all negative splatter, because the positive shapes are the shapes of the white foamy water. Um, Now I did use a positive splatter with gouache as well. So you can see a combination right in here of negative splatter and then positive splatter with white. And this branch really got away from me. And I had abused the paper to the extent that um, I decided to just stop trying to keep it transparent. And that's when I mixed up this pale yellow green and splattered the leaves on the tree and splattered some of the white. And I also splattered some of that green over here where you really didn't need it, but I wanted to kind of pull the uh, whole composition together. So that required a little more splatter just because of the amount of splatter I had used elsewhere. And this one also has a little bit of white splatter, but it's 99.9% transparent. So this whole area is simply negative painting. And of course, you can see I use some salt to give a frothy look. And this is mostly where I use the white splatter. This is negative splatter right here, and then a little bit of white splatter on top, just to pull everything together. And I put this one in because I wanted to make a point that, I think, well, in my classes, I would say almost without fail, the people in my classes want to loosen up. And I remember, back when I started painting professionally, which has been a long time ago now, over 40 years, and I was so drawn to the loose look. And it really did look like it wasn't going to be that hard. So I'm here to tell you that that's not true. Um, so in this particular painting, the part that probably looks the hardest is this area right here. If you can see my pink arrow I'm using as a pointer. This area was really pretty easy. The hard part, and this over here, this non-objective area of foliage, which if you looked at it all by itself wouldn't look like anything, that wasn't really hard to do. What was hard was making that transition, that segue between representational, even though loose, but still, you could tell what it is pretty clearly. Making that transition from here to here, this area right here was a bear. So I find painting loosely not to be easy at all. But I work at it really hard. I work very, very hard to make it look like it was easy. This one is on watercolor canvas, and it is also all transparent. But I did want to, the reason I put this one in the mix was because this area right in here, I didn't use white, I didn't use masking, but what I did do, which was pretty easy on the watercolor canvas, was to pick out these little streams of little points of light to form little streams. I picked those out by scratching with the point of an X-Acto blade. So we have so many different options and tools at our disposal. And let's see. I also wanted to say that, like I said before, rocks and water are my favorite thing, very, very favorite thing to paint. And when I can add flowers to the rocks and water, that makes me a very happy painter. And so that's the cover that was chosen for my book. And for that cover painting, I did use a little splatter of white and some dry brush. But the rest of the painting is pretty much transparent with negative painting. Oh, I threw this one in for fun because if I can't find a scene that actually has flowers in it, I've been known to walk up and down the creek and find a place to set a bouquet of flowers and then take a bunch of pictures. I did do a plein air painting in oil the day I took these pictures, but this particular painting was done from one of the photos I took that day. And I do have a couple of watercolor um, videos that are still available. As I said before, I believe they are through Artist Network. So that's the end of my slideshow. So I'm going to stop the share and go straight to the demo. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I just put this there for a placeholder. So I did prepare ahead of time the rainbow underpainting, and then I put the drawing on top, which is what I'm going to demonstrate on. But first, I'm going to show you that rainbow underpainting process. It doesn't take very long. So I have clipped it down to a strong, sturdy surface so that it won't buckle on me. And I'm going to wet it with clear water.
Julie, can you walk us through your paper type and the brushes you're using?
Yes, this is Arches 140 pound rough. And tonight I'm only using a 9 by 12. It fits on the zoom camera really well, the size does. And so that's what I'm using. Um, this is a wonderful brush that I've had for years. It's a connoisseur 1.5 inch square wash. And for this, I'm going to, oh, by the way, I need to stretch this out a little bit because, of course, the water makes the paper expand. So I'm pulling it as tight as I can with my fingers and reclipping. Usually they dry fairly flat. So I'm going to use 3 colors. They're pretty close to the colors that you get that your printer uses. So this is, now I'm using high flow acrylics on this little lid just for the sake of being able to use very separate colors and not have them mixed up on my palette. So they are high flow. They are fluid is also fine. And let's see, they are Hansa yellow medium, quinacridone, I'm sorry, I should do it like this, quinacridone red. And I've got it all over my hand now. I don't want to get it on my shirt. And phthalo blue green shade. I don't even need that much. Boy, they're really, the little nozzles are really leaking tonight. So even when I use the fluid or the high flow, I dilute them even further. I immediately spray them with water a lot. I don't want a plastic film of color on my paper. needs to be stretched out a little bit more. So I may have let this dry a little bit too much. Let me
Julie, we
just
have a
look.
question.
Yes.
What is the advantage of using fluid acrylic for the underpainting?
Well, I don't always use acrylic for the underpainting. In fact, I usually just use watercolor for the rainbow underpainting. Um, but there is an advantage in that the acrylic won't dissolve. So if you want a little crisper look, if you don't want the colors to dissolve with subsequent washes, the acrylic won't. So I'm just going to sprinkle. Now, when you're doing a snow scene, of course, you need to be a little more careful with yellow. I don't want yellow snow. But, so you can see even with my brush, well, you can't probably. So even my brush, I'm diluting it even more than I did already. It's moving into the blue. I don't want that right now. I'm just sprinkling. So I'll probably use a little more color than I normally do, so you can see it. If it's too pale, it's hard to see, but it kind of breaks up the whites into um, a feeling of the rainbow. The blue really needs to be diluted, so it's because it's of course darker. Now, as I told you, I got this from a book by John Pike, and in his book, he said, this paper keeps stretching out on me. He said he then pulls it together with a brush like that just to get rid of the spots, I suppose. Sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. Um, if you mix them too much, you're going to have gray. And I want the colors to be, I want their separation to be visible. So that's all
Julie,
there is to it. Yes.
do you use the same three colors for all of your underpaintings?
No. If it's pure watercolor, I probably use, let's see, um, well, whatever cool yellow I'm using at the time. Right now, my coolest yellow is Winsor yellow. Windsor lemon is even cooler. I haven't used that in a while, but I do like it. And probably quinacridone magenta or permanent rose, which is the same as quinacridone rose. Um, and the blue might be Antwerp blue or maybe even a more turquoisey blue, like a phthalo blue green shade, which I really don't have right now. The closest I've got to that is Daler Rowney transparent turquoise, which really isn't turquoise. It's just a very cool blue. But what I'm searching for is primary colors that most closely resemble yellow, cyan, and magenta, printer's inks. So this is ready. When it dries, it'll be ready for another painting. So this would be good for snow. It's also good for waterfalls, or which I usually don't do because to be honest, I don't really think about this technique. I really think about it the most when a snow scene comes along. I'm gonna put
Julie,
that aside.
is there a rhyme or a reason as to where you splash each color on the paper, or is it just letting the magic happen?
Um, what the way I do it is just random.
Okay.
Okay, so now to our snow scene. Let's see. I need to attach. Oh, what did I do? I've got to rob Peter to pay Paul. I only have one of these nice plastic boards that fit the size on the floor. Um, I'm gonna see if I forgot anything in my notes. Let me just take a quick glance while I'm getting this clipped. Um, So this was just random. What I did do though was I turned it both ways to see which area I thought would be the best for this snow area, because this is the area that's going to be the largest white snow area. And I'll show you my reference picture. Um, so this is my reference photo. Oh, let me get the acrylic out of the way. And I don't want to put it somewhere where it's going to spill all over the place. There we go. My palette, my watercolor palette over here where it belongs. Um, the full picture, I don't have a full picture. I took this picture um, this past March, just south of in the hills, mountains south of Santa Fe. I taught a workshop there in March, and after it was over, we drove around in the mountains to see what we could see, and we crossed this little bridge, and I it was just so beautiful that my husband stopped, and I got out on the bridge, and he kept track of traffic, which there was none. It was a little road going way back into a canyon, and there wasn't any traffic. But I just snapped some pictures as quickly as I could, and then cropped them down. And I think this is going to be the composition for um, a snow painting class through Scottsdale Artist School that's coming up in January. So I'm going to use the painting tonight as a kind of like a study for this painting. But in one of the other pictures, it showed this. I was just so taken with this little hole in the snow and the icicles dripping from it. This rock is this rock. And I don't have a picture that shows all of that together, so I had to kind of cobble some together for the composition I planned for the future. But for tonight, I thought this was really interesting and would serve its purpose because it's got this nice big white area for that rainbow underpainting to show through. Um, and I haven't been watching the clock, so I have no idea how much time I've got left. Can you tell me?
You still have another hour.
Oh, good. Okay, we should be able to get something done. So, oh, you might be interested to know about this brush. Um, most of the writing has worn off. This is a Mimic Kolinsky by Creative Mark. You can get it through Jerry's. I think it's like their house brand or something. Um, I've had this brush for quite a few years and I never used it. And I decided I needed a round brush for gouache. I thought, well, I don't care. I'll just use this one. And now I absolutely love it. So for the last several months, I've been using it for watercolor, gouache, and acrylic. And the gouache and the acrylic are harder on a brush than watercolor, but it's still really a great brush. I did order another one just to make sure I had one waiting in the wings. So let's see, what am I going to use? I usually use a limited palette of, I use the same palette of colors over and over again. So this is Winsor yellow. This is Indian yellow. So I've got a cool and a warm, I should say cooler and warmer yellow. And I love Holbein's Scarlet Lake. These two are Winsor Newton colors. The Scarlet Lake I do prefer in Holbein. And quinacridone magenta, which is also Winsor Newton. I have discovered that I really do like the Sennelier Prussian blue. So that's a really strong blue, and I love cerulean. So you have to kind of work it to make it a color you can really work with because it's very pasty, but it has that sedimentary granulation that happens that I just love. So I have a cooler, warmer, warmer, cooler. My blues, neither one is particularly warm or cool. I think they're slightly cool, but they're not. You can still make really nice purples with them if you want purple, which I love purple. So those are the six colors.
Julie, we
Now,
have a question.
yes,
Do you have a preference for Antwerp blue?
well, I only know of Antwerp blue as a Winsor Newton color. I've never been able to find it in in other brands.
Okay.
There might be the same formulation, but and there probably is, but to my knowledge, if there is, it's got a different name, and I have never found it. Um, so if anybody knows, I would love to know. Um, so I usually keep really good records. And so every painting I do or start, because I do a lot of demos that never get finished, but every beginning gets an ID number. And the reference that I'm working from gets that same ID number, um, which helps to keep track of everything. And I also write down what I'm using. So I'm using, and just the initials are fine. So I write down what I'm using so that if and when I get to go back and work on it again, I know exactly what went into the painting. I won't take the time to do all of them right now, but even though my palette starts out as being limited, it's not meant to be limiting. So as I get into the painting, if I find I need another color, I will definitely use another color. I'm not bound by that. It's just a starting point. Because I know these colors work well together. And I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to this to get a little bit greener blue. And I'm going to start by laying in some of those shadows. And you know what? I've made a decision already to add cobalt blue. Somehow or other, I kind of want to see cobalt blue in that shadow. So I'm painting in fairly traditional light to dark. And in the picture, there's this big shadow area on the snow back here. I did change it up a bit. I put in a little waterfall right here, and I put the big boulder here. So it's not, my drawing is not exactly what you see here. Um, just so you know.
Julie,
But
do
I
you mind if I
am,
ask a few questions?
oh, absolutely not. Go ahead.
Okay. You use reference photos. Do you always use a reference photo?
Yes, it's very
Eh,
rare for me to do a painting without a reference. Um, so it might be a plein air painting. If I'm painting in plein air, of course, I'm looking at what's there in front of me. And when I'm painting in plein air, I also take pictures of what I'm looking at so that later, if I need to finish it, I have that information and also can label it with the ID number, which comes in really handy. Let's see,
And
I've
how
got
much do you generally stick to your reference photo versus improvising?
well, I look at it this way. My reference photo is my inspiration. So I really look at it very carefully, and I refer to it often while I'm painting, but I also pick and choose. So you've probably heard of that saying, take the best and leave the rest. So if it's something and if there's something in the reference photo that I love, I will use it. If I don't like it or feel like it could be improved, I either leave it out or change it.
Do you ever
But I'm
do
not a, I'll finish that thought first.
do you ever
Um,
do thumbnail sketches or value studies before you paint?
yeah, let me finish that other thought first.
Go ahead.
Um, I don't, and all the painters who I have followed over the years, um, all the representational painters that I personally just, I just love their work so much. They all paint from observation. So it's not that I don't admire and love some work that is totally imaginary, but it's not my thing. Okay, so as far as I'm absolutely a big um, believer in studies, and I have when I teach a class, all my students get documents that I've prepared ahead of time that um, address different things that are going on in class or things that I feel that are really important for them to know. And one of those documents is a 20-page document where I um, describe in words and illustrate 12 different studies. So one of them would be, well, I start with the notan, um, and then go to value sketch. I mean, in the document I'm talking about. Then go to the value sketch, and let's see what's next after that. Um, gesture, um, blind contour, modified blind contour. Um, my favorite, the 4-step sketch. I'll show you an example of that in a minute. Let's see what else. I mean, there's a ton. Sketches that I'll do in my phone or in a tablet when I don't have anything any drawing materials. See, those shadows have to fall not only here, but on the other side of this little stream. So let me put those in. Yeah, I can show you that document and um, so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. So that probably did answer the question, though. I did not do one for this. This itself is going to serve as a study for another painting. That's my thought. All right. Let's see. Do I have any other shadows I need to put in there? Uh, I feel like needs to be more blue up here because I know in one of those pictures that I took when I was there, there's a whole big background that is shaded by the forest. Okay, so that's my lightest light. And now I'm going to go to a medium value color. And I'm not going to be too creative. I see it in that stream. It's kind of, there's some gold, kind of gold and browns and goldy greens. That looks, let's make it a little brighter.
Julie, what was the first sketch type that you named?
No tan.
And what is that?
This is really wet. So let me just put this aside for a minute and I'll show you that document. I should be able to put my hands right on it. Sometimes that's easier said than done, but I think it's right here. I have a gazillion documents that I share with my students. This one of these days will turn into a chapter that to sell on my website, which I have 5 at this point. But for right now, it's just something that I give to my students. So I think it's 20 pages. So it has, each one has my reference picture and the final painting. And a no-tan, my understanding of a no-tan is that it is black and white, or at least dark and light. It's not multiple values. Now, I've heard it described as the same thing as a value sketch, but it's just semantics. The way I learned about it was that it was simply dark and light. So I took this dark or black and white sketch and added gray to make it a full 3 value sketch. A very simplified value sketch because of just 3 values rather than any nuance. Normally, I do my value sketches with a water-soluble marker, a vis-a-vis a wet erase pen, and then add water. So this is more my normal value sketch. This was a plein air demo in Wisconsin on Lake Superior a couple years ago. And so I'll just show you some different ones. This is a no drawing sketch. And then the follow-up painting was also done with no drawing, so there's no pencil at all in here. But that's really outside my comfort zone because I normally draw my compositions.
Julie, we have a question.
Yes.
Do you do your drawings freehand or do you use a light table or any other aids?
Um, I I do my freehand drawings a lot of the time, not always. So if it's on a canvas, I'll probably just do, well, I know this group isn't necessarily interested in oil, but I do them freehand with a brush and paint. But this is a way of getting your drawing done and not having a whole bunch of erasures on your paper. So this is the one I did for today's demo. So what I do is I take a piece of tracing paper, the size of my proposed painting, and put it on a white background. And then I sit in front of my computer, not this one, but another one that's hooked up to I think it's a 24-inch screen. So I'm looking at my photo on a large screen, which of course is illuminated, which is so far superior to looking at a picture printed on paper. So I do my drawing while looking at the picture on the monitor. So I have a lot of erasures in here because I veered away from this. I made that, it looks like this shape I made it a little longer. I put a big boulder here. I put a little creek here, a little water cascade. Um, so I use this as um, my inspiration, but no, I don't follow it completely. So then once I've got it, and I don't get a perfect drawing, I just want to know where all the shapes are. So then once that is done, then I clip it to my watercolor paper, like this is clipped to a piece of watercolor paper. And I just sneak the pencil in underneath just to get all the shapes placed. And then I take this off and finish my drawing while I'm looking at the image on the computer. So it's not a perfect method, but I know some people will say, well, some instructors will tell people to scribble on the back of their tracing paper and then, press hard to transfer it or use graphite paper. And I just don't like that look because you can see that you've pressed really hard and it just looks traced. So if you do my method, then it looks like it has the freehand look, which it is because it was started a freehand and just perfected in terms of shape placement before putting on the paper. I anticipated your question. Aren't you proud of me?
Thank you for answering.
Absolutely. So anyway, this is the document that, and it just ends with something I did on my phone. But the answer, that was a long answer to a simple question. Yes, I do studies. Now, where's my painting? There it is. So let's see. Excuse me. Um, I normally use a number um, 2B, or sometimes just a number two office pencil, but a number 2B usually for getting my drawing done. And you can see I do quite a bit of drawing. Um, and I have worked on my drawing ability, let's say, because I personally enjoy in other people's work, I enjoy seeing the pencil when they leave it. The watercolor painters I can think of right offhand, whose work I love so dearly. Um, Nita Ingle, um, Charles Reed. I could name many others, but one of the things that their work has in common is that you can really see the pencil. And I like that. So um, I felt like, I mean, if you want to leave your pencil showing, you need to make sure that it is attractive, where you don't see a lot of erasing and et cetera. And let's see, my rule of thumb also in regards to the amount of drawing, I really want to be able to see where all the parts are. Now, there are some times when I don't draw everything out because I can see it in my mind's eye, but which is a little risky because sometimes you think you're going to be able to see something and then you get into the painting and you don't. So when that happens, I just stop and I redraw to make sure I know where everything is. Um, and I enjoy drawing, and I'm more um, uh, I'm more line oriented than paint oriented. I call the pencil my thinking tool. So when I need to stop and think about something, I usually pick up a pencil. Not always. Sometimes my brain is more oriented towards shape and color, but in general, I would say that the pencil is my thinking tool. So when I do flat water, I generally use a flat brush. while I'm doing that portion of the painting. And in this case, the reflections are pretty dark because of the dark, wet rocks. So I don't have to be too cautious about leaving lights. And I also do some vertical shapes, brushwork in the on top of that kind of diagonal back and forth movement because the vertical helps make it look very reflective.
Julie, we
So,
have a question.
uh-huh,
Do you draw the shadows in?
yes, I do. Some people are surprised by that, but and I guess that's because in nature we know of a shadow as being just not solid. But when it comes to your painting, your shadow is as solid as a rock because it's a shape. We're not dealing with reality, we're dealing with shapes on a flat surface. So I'm going to let this flat water spill over this little uh, water cascade that I've invented.
Julie, we had a request. Could you rename the 6 colors that you're using?
Well, I changed it to 7,
Oh,
but they
7.
are
Apologies.
they are Windsor yellow, Indian yellow, Scarlet Lake, quinacridone magenta, cobalt blue, cerulean blue, and Prussian blue. So now I'm going to switch to painting the dark part of this rock. And I need my thinking tool because I need to make sure I know where that snow is because I don't want to cover that up. So the snow is kind of laying over the edge a little bit. So I'm guessing that it's probably kind of like so. So I need a nice dark, I need to sop up some of that moisture. I do basically paint with puddles. I paint with a lot of water. Um, Now let's see if my brush will behave. If I'm nervous about it and think it might not, I'll just lay something down. Let's see, I don't want to lay it in a wet spot. I think that's all right. I'll just lay down a couple of pieces of paper to keep the splatters from going where I don't want them to go. Not, I don't mind if they go a little astray, but not too astray. Let's see, I think, no matter how many times I've taught classes and done demos like this, I'm still nervous. So that affects how you're handling your brush. So this is negative splatter, which you'll see in a minute. This part of it doesn't look negative. So in my classes, um, I have a lesson that I call um, target practice. And that's because to splatter and get it to go in the right place, because the paint has to leave your brush and travel through the air to land, hopefully where you want it to land. Um, it takes a lot of practice, and we could certainly call it target practice. You'll notice I'm going back and forth between warmer and cooler colors. And so when I do this, it's really more about the puddles that I pull together than getting the paint to land exactly where I want it, although that is also important. I think I probably should have left that light. I'm going to blot it. So now you can see where I've got water splashing up in front of that dark rock. Now, one thing that's important is to try to get that value as dark as it needs to be at the beginning. Because if you need to darken it later, you'll need to use a different technique because obviously you can't. Splatter is so random, you can't get it to go in exactly the same place next time around. Let's see, I started to act like I was finished, but I'm not finished. I also need to do a splattered edge there. So again, because I feel like my brush is going to misbehave, might as well blame it on the brush, right? Now my goal is to have this little water cascade a little darker than the white water down here, but a little darker at the bottom and then lighter at the top. So I'm leaving a lot of white along the top of that ridge. And of course, I will be putting more value on that water eventually, but this is the first layer. I think it's probably dry enough I can show you. Now I'm going to refer to my picture to get the values. So I mixed up kind of a medium value, same colors, just, I think maybe it should be a little greener. We can see the shadow is coming across that snow. It's usually a little darker right before it spills. I'm going to reinforce a little bit of that spill and change my color up a little bit. A little more blue. So as I use this, this is another form of negative painting, leaving some little zigzag lights coming through there.
Julie, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
You've been watercolor painting for a long time. I'll leave it at
Yeah,
that.
a
Uh,
long time.
um, over the years, what keeps watercolor exciting for you after doing it for so long? Why continue to do it?
Um, well, that question really doesn't apply to just watercolor. It's painting in general. Um, I I can't tell you. I just love to make paintings. I love to paint. And I love to try to capture um, something that I've seen um, that just I just love it. That's the only thing I know to say. It's
We have another question.
no, on before I answer it or hear it, then the other question. Also, it's such a challenge. I will never master watercolor or any other medium. They will keep me on my toes and learning for as long as I'm able to continue painting. Okay, now the other question.
Why or what point in your painting process do you turn to gouache or acrylic or back to watercolor, etc.?
um, well, I approach watercolor with um, gouache in a couple of different ways. I guess I'll try to remember how I put it in my um, as an introduction to my um, supply list. So I treat gouache in three basic ways. First, as a fix-it to watercolor when it you get to a point where you kind of really need an opaque color. And as I've already said, I really like the look of paint rather than masking. And the negative painting um, is, you know, we all know how challenging that is. And sometimes you just can't quite get everything you want with negative painting. So that's the first way that I use gouache as an adjunct to uh, watercolor. I think that I'm going to have to narrow that down a little bit, but I think I'm going to leave it for right now. Um, let's see. And the second um, is using it as simply as a gouache medium from start to finish. It's a gouache painting. And third, as a way to resurrect a painting that really did fail. And maybe it's been sitting around for a long time and I want to finish it, but it requires um, either a whole lot of lifting and a lot of time, and I don't want to spend. And I enjoy using gouache, so I'll just finish it with gouache. So those are the three ways that I use gouache. Now, acrylic, a little bit different. Um, I, but I guess same words kind of apply in a way. But the only acrylic I use as a fix-it usually is white matte acrylic, or as an acrylic underpinning, like I showed you in the slideshow, where um, I use it transparently at the beginning. And that's when it's combined with watercolor. Um, Other than that, it's an acrylic painting from start to finish. Except that sometimes I'll use acrylic to start an oil painting. There are just all these different, we have so much at our disposal to create whatever kind of image we have in our mind's eye that we're trying to capture. And we just got a lot of stuff we can use. So I hope I've answered those questions in a way that is understandable. I feel like I didn't quite get that to this point to look quite right. I'll have to work on that later. Go ahead. Yet
I,
another.
I was just gonna say that I'm impressed that you can talk and paint at the same time because I can't even chew gum and walk at the same time. So, but I did have
Um,
another question.
yeah.
Um, what are you thinking about when you paint, or do you think has it become like an automatic? Are you just humming Christmas carols in your head while you paint, or are you meticulously planning out every move?
Um, I do a lot of planning before I start painting. But while I'm painting or drawing, if I'm not teaching a class, I'm listening to an audiobook. I love my audiobooks because I all my life before audiobooks became so available, and now I just get them through my library, listen to them on my headset on my phone. All my life, I just wished that somebody would read to me while I was painting, or read to me while I was doing something where I had to have my hands. And now somebody does read to me while I'm painting, and it's awesome. So I find also that when I'm listening to a book, it kind of occupies that verbal side of my brain and allows my right brain to just paint and not, I'm still thinking about it, but it's hard to explain. Um, but it really helps me.
Julie, we had a request to see the reference photo again.
There you go. You can see I've really changed. There were little waterfalls or, small ruffles elsewhere, but not in this particular picture. But I just put one in. So I got a smudge there that I don't like. I'll probably sponge that out later with clear water. So I wanted to get down here. None of this is finished, by the way. Um, this shadow needs to curve over that rock or bank, whatever it is, a little better. So I'll have to work on that later. But I really wanted to work on this little spot right here. I just found it so precious. And I did, here, there it is. I printed a close up of it so that both of us, or all of us, I should say, could see it better. See those, I guess, I don't know why that little hole is there, but now I don't live in snow country. And I've really never lived where it snowed very much. Um, so all of this I've been doing by painting wet on dry. But I'm going to shake that up a little bit and do a little bit of selective wet into wet here because I'm sure you are aware that when you start to paint, put paint to paper, you always have an option of wetting the paper first if you want to. So you always have an option and a decision as to whether to wet the paper or not wet the paper. I need a cleaner surface here. So by wetting that surface first, I can kind of drop the color in. It's a little warmer. Color's a little warmer down here. I didn't really mean to get it quite that neutral, however.
Julie, the time got away from me. We have about 5 minutes left.
Ay, ay, ay.
Apologies.
um, well, I wanted to go back to to the screen share to quickly show you how this will continue on um, after tonight. So with your permission, I will switch over, but I do want to get a little more, that's a little bit too much. I just didn't want it to be so boringly neutral. So I'm going to show you, let's see. Okay, my brain went bye-bye. There we go. So this is the 4-step sketch. So for the 4-step sketch, I use 4 colors only. This shows 4 other colors because people in class didn't have the same exact colors I had. So I was showing how any 3 primary colors will work. You don't have to have a particular color, but that's a 4-step sketch. And then I decided to take it a little bit further, and I used white to a little more dark here and there, a little white to sprinkle some snowflakes, and to take it a little bit further than that simple sketch. But that's what the 4-step sketch looks like. That one was just 4 simple steps, and then I added to it. So here's the painting with the acrylic, not acrylic, I keep saying that, I'm sorry. With the rainbow underpainting, you could see quite clearly the yellow, magenta, and cyan colors, which was just watercolor. It wasn't the acrylic like I used tonight. And then I just proceeded to paint it in a normal fashion. I put the drawing on top. You can see I'm starting to build up values, negative painting around the trees, further build up of values, just a really loose painting of the forest on the other side of the road, shadows, etc., and a little bit more. And then the final darks to pull it all together. I have thought that I might splatter a little bit of white on this. I haven't decided yet. I painted this in January, but I could still add more to it if I so choose. But that's the way it stands, and that's pretty much the way the painting I started for you tonight will go, if and when I have the time to do it. So I'm going to stop sharing, go um, back to where we were. So I'm sure we are right out of time at this point. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here. We are right at 8:30.
All right. Well, I guess that's where we have to leave it then. But thank you so much for having me.
Yes, Julie, thank you so much for being our demonstrator for this evening. And I learned a lot of things from you, actually. So thank you. I very much appreciate it. Um, Anyone, if you want to throw up a heart or a round of applause or a thumbs up for our demonstrator, I'm sure she would appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for sticking with us. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful evening. And I hope to see all of you and more at our holiday party. Once again, thank you, Julie.
Oh, well, thank you. It was my pleasure. Good night.
Good night, everyone.